Mabrica! Welcome to the special episode of Taino Culture. I'm Priscilla Colon, co-founder and creative here at Casa, Areyto, where our mission is to promote the Taino language and culture. Today, I have a special episode for you. It's on Agüeybaná's library, also known as Father Nazario's stone. This could be a pre-Columbian writing system of the Caribbean. Now, I'm bringing you this episode because much of the information has been found in Spanish. However, that has led to a ton of misinformation for our English-speaking audience. So, today, I'm going to bring you a summarized version of a wonderful presentation that Dr. Reniel Rodríguez Ramos gave at Reencuentro Taino Conference 2023, where he gave us all of the most recent evidence, things that are astounding. Now, if you didn't get the chance to, I highly recommend that you watch the original presentation by Dr. Rodríguez Ramos. I've left the link below. Now, on to today's episode. Dr. Reniel Rodríguez Ramos is a Puerto Rican archaeologist who specializes in Caribbean pre-Columbian cultures. He's the author of Rethinking Puerto Rican Pre-Colonial History and co-editor of the Oxford Handbook of Caribbean Archaeology. He challenges traditional views of our ancestors. His decolonizing approach includes research and community engagement. Dr. Reniel Rodríguez Ramos has critically studied the controversial Agüeybaná's library or Father Nazario stones. These are inscribed artifacts that could show a pre-Columbian writing system in the Caribbean. Through his research, he aims to clarify the stones' authenticity and how they might rewrite the history of our ancestors. The story begins with Father José María Nazario y Cancel, who was a Puerto Rican Catholic priest in Guayanilla, Puerto Rico. He was also an amateur archaeologist. As the story goes, a woman on her deathbed gave the priest instructions on where to find the quote-unquote library of the Indians. He followed her instructions to the place she indicated, lifted a stone slab, and found what he called volumes of these objects. Father Nazario found an estimated 800 pieces of stone with this writing system, but Dr. Reniel Rodríguez Ramos has only found about 348 stones, which means more than half of the collection is still missing. The stones were found near the town of Guayanilla. As you can see on the screen, Guayanilla is in the southern part of Borikén. However, other stones with similar carvings were found in other regions of Borikén, such as in the municipality of Florida. And this one came from Quebradillas, which speaks to the widespread nature of this system of symbols. In his book, Guayanilla, The History of Puerto Rico, Father Nazario wrote, "I feel the strong temptation to believe that the numerous anthropoglyphs were a national archive. In this context, anthropoglyphs means human-like or human-made objects with glyphs or writings on them." News was published that Father Nazario was working on a second book titled Aboriginal Writing of Carib, dedicated to the topic of the stones. In a later news article, the working book title changed to The Phonetic Writing of the Indians of Puerto Rico. But that second book was never published and the manuscript has never been found. Now we know that Father Nazario was attempting to translate the script using this ancient Mesopotamian disc with Pseudo-Aramaic inscriptions because he believed that this was a Hebrew Chaldean script, an ancient Semitic language related to Aramaic that was similar to Assyrian. Now, why would he think this? Well, in the early colonial period, Catholics believed indigenous peoples were part of the lost tribes of Israel. Missionaries used this idea to justify their forced conversions of Taínos. It also conveniently explained why the Bible, considered the ultimate authority, didn't mention Abya Yala, the newly discovered continent. Now, because he was a Catholic priest, Father Nazario probably shared these same beliefs, even though he was way off the mark. Professional studies of the stones began with Alphonse Pinard, a French ethnologist, linguist, and archaeologist. He's one of the first to begin registering rock art from the Caribbean. He visited Father Nazario around 1881 and took 38 stones with him to France. These stones you see on the screen are now in a museum in Paris. He began to analyze and classify the stones because he noticed that some were authentic, but others weren't. Now, it's true that not all of the stones in Father Nazario's collection were authentic, because when people on the island heard that he was looking for stones with writing on them, they began creating their own and selling it to Father Nazario. Some of the fake stones identified by Pinart, like those on the screen, show marks made with metal tools. Other falsifications reveal a lighter color inside the marks, meaning that the marks were made after the stones had weathered for many years. Because of this, the entire collection has been labeled a hoax. Many people quote Pinart talking about the quote-unquote fake stones, but they omit an important part of his quote, where he talks about the authenticity of a lot of the stones that he studied. Even Dr. Rodríguez Ramos has identified newly discovered fakes, including some made of plaster, like the one you see on the right. Then Americans, including influential anthropologist Jesse Walter Fuchs, became interested in the stones. Commissioned by the Bureau of American Ethnology, Fuchs created major collections now housed at the Smithsonian. He called Father Nazario's collection the island's most incredible, and he hounded Father Nazario to discuss the stones. Fuchs acquired some stones from an organization in Ponce, which are now in the Smithsonian, but classified as fakes due to his labeling. When Dr. Rodríguez Ramos asked why they were labeled as fakes, the Smithsonian said that no one had studied them, but that they must be fake. In 1915, Samuel Lothrop went to Puerto Rico as an investigator from Harvard. He acquired some stones too. They're now in the Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology at Harvard. Irving Rouse is a renowned American archaeologist at Yale University. You might know him as the author of The Taínos, Rise and Decline of the People Who Greeted Columbus. He briefly examined the stones at Harvard, writing just one line: 5 carved stones, all frauds. Then came a teacher who began to move things forward. In 1905, a 25-year-old teacher by the name of Alice Lowren, an Irish-American from Missouri, married a Puerto Rican, Dr. Jose Manuel Santiago. She moved with him back to Puerto Rico, where she began to teach English. Alice was a huge history buff, and she began collecting archaeological finds in Puerto Rico. She actually became one of the biggest donors to the Smithsonian. But Alice wasn't just a collector. She wanted the pieces to be investigated. She began studying the stones and believed they dated back to 2600 BCE to the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were an ancient Semitic-speaking people who lived in the coastal regions of the Eastern Mediterranean. You see some of their archaeological finds on the screen. Now, Alice had a lot of connections in academia. She sent some stones to prominent epigraphists at Yale. Epigraphists specialize in studying inscriptions on durable materials like stone, metal, or pottery. Dr. Torrey and Doherty, who you see on the screen, believed the stones were authentic, but not Phoenician as Alice had thought. Now, this was the first time that actual experts in ancient writings had studied the stones, and they agreed they were authentic. Aurelio Tio was an engineer and historian who was president of the Puerto Rican Academy of History. He became interested in the stones too. He contacted many well-known archaeologists and anthropologists, but no one wanted to be associated with the stones because they were deemed as fakes. Tio involved Barry Fell, who is considered by many a pseudo-archaeologist. He believed the stones contained a Basque syllabary. Fell theorized that Basques traveled from Spain and France to the Andes, mingled with indigenous people, and created this syllabary. He also attempted to interpret the symbols, claiming to find references to plant names, semi names, and more. When Dr. Rodríguez Ramos took over the investigation, he wanted to determine if the stones were truly fake by using modern technologies that could detect falsification more easily, tools that were unavailable to researchers in the late 1800s through the late 1900s. He began by determining the type of rock the stones were made of, having them analyzed by geologists in Puerto Rico and Amsterdam using the latest technologies such as XRF, which is X-ray fluorescence that determines the elemental composition of a material, and XRD instruments. XRD is X-ray diffraction. It identifies the crystal structure of a material. The researchers confirmed the type of rock the stones are made of, and that it is found on the island of Borikén. However, even though this type of rock is found on the southern part of the island, we just don't have the technology to say with 100% certainty that the rocks originate on the island. It's just highly probable. Next, specialized 3D scans revealed whether the cuts were new, that is, angular or fresher, like the two on the left side of the image, or old, rounded, weathered from natural exposure, like the two on the right side. This helped distinguish authentic stones from the fakes. The stones were sent to the University of Haifa's Zinman Institute of Archaeology. They are a neutral third party with expertise in ancient writing and the necessary equipment to study the stones. Dr. Iris Groman-Yaroslavsky analyzed 20 of the stones. Under high magnification, she checked for traces of metal tools, which would indicate modern incisions and that the stones were fake. She found none of that. Instead, her findings suggested the incisions were made with other rocks, such as flint, indicating that these were indeed ancient carvings. Next, she also found ochre in some of the grooves. This is a natural pigment that many indigenous people use. In addition, she found what appears to be gold lamination and what looks like copper flecks, but further analysis needs to be done. Dr. Groman-Yaroslavsky also noticed something else. Many of the stones had what looked like a face with a sort of dent on the chin area, as if they had been hit on purpose to create that indentation. However, we don't know what this means. Many stones also have a crisscross pattern, as if someone has just scratched X's on top of the finished piece. This is also found in stones throughout the island that aren't part of the collection. The crisscross patterns make some of them look like funerary bundles. These are bundles in which a body is wrapped, often in fabric, as part of burial practices. Funerary bundles are found particularly in ancient or indigenous cultures. Then the researchers got lucky. Some rocks had burned a long time ago, leaving soot inside little crevices of the rock. Why is this lucky? Well, you can use radiocarbon techniques to date the rocks with the soot. Some of the oldest rocks are from 1120 BCE, making them 3,144 years old. That means that they are pre-Columbian. They were here thousands of years before the colonizers. One day, Dr. Rodríguez Ramos received more insights from an unexpected source. A local sculptor saw the stones and described the stone collection as a little school. He observed that the pieces seemed to have been created by different artisans. This interpretation makes sense. It aligns with the dates and the locations the stones were found. It tells us that this writing system was widely used all over the island. Now, since Dr. Rodríguez Ramos wanted to prove if in fact these stones were fake, he had them examined by the foremost expert in the falsification of ancient writings, and that is Dr. Christopher Rolston of George Washington University. When Dr. Rolston first saw these stones, he was stunned. He noted that he had never seen anything like them. They appeared to have an unknown writing or codification system. He said it was definitely not Hebrew or Phoenician. The symbols didn't seem to be decorative, and the presence of register lines suggests that they helped with reading and possibly gave the symbols their phonetic or other values. The register lines also indicated that the system was well established. He recommended that Dr. Rodríguez Ramos start isolating the symbols, that is, coming up with a list of the symbols that he found, and to start analyzing them. Dr. Rodríguez Ramos and the team began isolating the symbols manually, writing what they saw on paper. But this was basic and very tedious work. They needed specialized equipment. They turned to RTI technology. RTI is reflectance transformation imaging. It is a photographic technique used to capture the surface details of an object by using multiple images taken from different lighting angles. You get a highly detailed 3D-like image, like the one you see on the screen, that reveals surface features such as textures, inscriptions, or markings that are not visible to the naked eye. Each section requires taking about 300 high-res images, and then you have to have special computer equipment analyze all the images. Experts from the Cultural Heritage Imaging Project flew down to the island and provided the specialized imaging and training on the equipment. Now, Roberto Pérez Reyes, an amazing researcher of symbology and great friend of Casa Areyto, is certified in the specialized imaging technique. The team began isolating the now visible symbols on each panel. So far, 22 symbols have been identified. Symbols appear in different positions as if they can be rotated, which suggests this is a syllabary. In general, syllabaries represent the syllables of a language, such as babe, bibo, boo. They often have fewer characters than alphabets because alphabets require one character for every single sound. But Dr. Rodríguez Ramos went further. He started searching for those symbols on other archaeological finds, such as ceramics, and he found them. He's now asking, what if these symbols weren't just decorative? What if they were there to convey important information? And these symbols have been there all along, not just on the stones, but on ceramics and other archaeological finds. Similar symbols are now being found in caves. Completely different types of symbols are also being found. This rock with symbols was discovered on a beach in Manatí, buried 6 to 7 feet under sand. You can only see it when large waves wash away the sand. These symbols are more similar to those of the Chibcha people, an indigenous group native to Central America, mainly in present-day Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, and Nicaragua. As part of an interdisciplinary approach, the archaeologists also began interviewing locals to learn what information may have been passed through oral traditions. Recently, the team has been working to gather more information by identifying the location where the library was found. The search has been narrowed down to the area between Guayanilla and Yauco. Now, there's still quite a lot of research to be done, but this is what we know. The stones are pre-Columbian. Some are more than 3,100 years old. Most likely, they were created in Borikén using local materials. They contain a previously unknown system of symbols, and the symbols have traces of gold and ochre, probably even copper. The register lines on the stones indicate a likelihood of an established writing system, and the locations of the stones indicate wide distribution or usage of that system. 22 symbols have been isolated so far, and they suggest a syllabary. But there's still a lot that we don't know. We don't know where the original cache of 800 stones was found. We don't know where half of the stones are even located today. We don't know what the symbols mean or what sounds they made, if any. And we don't know why some symbols look very different from others. We don't know why there's an indentation in the chin area of some of the stones, or why they were marked with a crisscross pattern. My hope is that by sharing this information with you and others, you might be inspired to join in the investigation, that during my lifetime we'll be able to get some crucial answers and maybe even discover what this writing system meant. In the meantime, tayo karaya guaitiao nagu.